Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Mom Project's Masterclass, Grit and Gratitude, a Mindset for the Masses. I'm Elizabeth Shackelford, the Senior Partner of PR and Social here at the Mom Project, coming to you from sunny Houston, Texas. And I am so excited to talk today with Executive Career Coach Jacqueleen Crittle of the Career Doctor. Welcome, Jacqueleen.
Oh, welcome, Elizabeth. It's so exciting to be back here in the room with you once again. I tell you, you could not have picked a better time and day to have this topic. It is definitely a hot topic. So I'm really excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you back.
All
For
right.
those who don't know, Jacqueleen is a nationally trusted cultural architect with a profound commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion advocacy for over 2 decades. To her credit, she has professionally coached C-suite executives at the nation's top Fortune 500 companies, hundreds of blue chip employer group members, and multiple professional organizations. Today, we're going to explore the power of grit and gratitude in personal and professional development. We're going to define each of these traits and examine the science behind them. We'll learn how to build grit by setting long-term goals, develop a growth mindset to persevere through challenges, and cultivate gratitude through mindfulness. Jacqueleen will guide us through an action plan to make a mindset shift and change the way we approach both our career and our professional lives. Before we start, just a few housekeeping notes. This session will be recorded and it will live here on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And a reminder that the comment section is public. So anything you say will live on here, will live on LinkedIn. We will have time for a Q&A at the end. So feel free to add any questions into the comments. All right, Jacqueleen, I'll let you take it away.
Oh my, I'm so excited. I'm going to tell you, Elizabeth, today is such a poignant time in our history to really lean into grit and gratitude. I've had so many people saying, such a topic. I love the idea behind it. And you know why? It's because today we as Americans are faced with so many challenges, from economic instability to the political polarization, from the ongoing aftermath of COVID-19. And what I hope today that we're able to achieve is that we can lean in to a mindset, a mental shift, that cultivating both grit and gratitude can help us develop and yet strengthen what we need to persevere and navigate through some of these challenges. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
As am I. Let's take it away. All right, everybody. So I am excited to join you guys here and talk a little bit about myself. So Elizabeth gave a little introduction of me, but I thought I'd dive in a little deeper so that you guys can get a sense of some of the fluffy stuff, right? So as she mentioned, I'm an International Coaching Federation career and life coach. I'm also a nonprofit leader. And as of today, I'm a 2-time author. Very proud of that. And I'm really known nationally as a trusted cultural architect, really with a profound commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And most importantly, I'm a total advocate for women's advocacy. So I'm really excited to be here. I've had the luxury and the privilege to be able to support, through my organization, the Career Doctor Consulting, organizations like the Mom Project, Chief, and Women in Sports and Events. That's just a few of the organizations, just the tip of the iceberg. But like in true fashion of grit, I do it all. I'm also a nonprofit leader for the Midwest College Project, where I've proudly supported career and college planning for over a decade, in addition to being a professional in the corporate world at Redwood Logistics. And as a corporate trainer, it is my role to be able to help deliver and accelerate the delivery of solutions. Even in my coaching, I'm a solutions-focused coach. And all that ends up being in my wheelhouse for me to act as a change catalyst. And that's why we're here today, to think about how we can embrace change as it relates to grit and gratitude. So let's get into it. So as Elizabeth shared with you, we're going to talk about grit in terms of what is it, because I know the term's been out there thrown around so much lately. I want to make sure we really understand what it is. Of course, we know what gratitude is, but I'd like for us to think about why both grit and gratitude are noteworthy topics for women like us. And so we'll do that by looking at what it means societally for women and the working mom or the working female professional. We'll lean into that. And the data doesn't lie. So we'll talk about what research and the science is showing about grit and gratitude. We'll pull it all and bring it all home together, because what we know is that no matter what plans we set in place, no matter how great they are, obstacles still do happen. Life happens. And so we're going to talk about what do we do when, and then how we ultimately can succeed through grit and gratitude. So let's dive on into it. So, as I mentioned earlier, I want to kind of clearly define what is grit. And that's a power word that's been thrown around a lot lately. But where did it come from? Well, you guys see her. That's Angela Duckworth. She's a psychologist from the University of Pennsylvania. And in the mid 2000s, Angela did a study that really showed the correlation between passion and perseverance towards your long-term goals, and how that directly correlated with being a predictor for success. And in fact, that direct correlation for grit actually was the measurement that said people actually are more successful, not tied to IQ or talent, but strictly behind their willingness to persevere and their passion towards grit. So Angela, we thank you for kind of giving us that clear-cut definition. If you guys would like to learn more about her, check her out on TEDx. So I'd like to define grit a little bit deeper. I'd like to dive in just a wee bit deeper. So when we think about grit, of course, we're thinking about hard work, dedication, long-term goals like Angela mentioned, but we're also thinking about our ability to overcome those challenges despite the obstacles and setbacks that we're going to ultimately face. Conversely, we've got gratitude, and let me tell you, gratitude looks and feels a lot different than you might think. Obviously, gratitude is that positive emotion, right? That attitude that says, Jesus, I'm thankful, or whomever you pray to. What I can say is the appreciation for the good things in one's life are the things that we cannot and should not take for granted. And many people do this in various ways. You might see people that are actually doing outward shows of thankfulness. So on Monday, we had Women's Appreciation, right? And so many people kicked off Women's Appreciation Month in March, saying all those kind words about cool things that we're doing in the workspace or with families. It was a wonderful day. But really, Women's Appreciation takes place every day. Let's start there. But that random acts of kindness and simple things are things that we cannot and should not take for granted. But gratitude also comes in other forms and fashion. And I'd like for us to hone in today on a time for simple reflection. And we'll lean into that in just a second here. Ultimately, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to recognize and acknowledge both people and experiences in a way that's going to broaden our horizons and bring us to a point of ultimate joy. And so in doing that, I'd really like to take a few minutes to talk about what are some of the three pillars around that. And before I do, I'm going to talk about a quote from Melanie Beattie. Melanie Beattie is a well-known author, and she says it better than anyone. She says that gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace of our today, and creates a vision for tomorrow, whereas grit keeps us on that same path towards that vision, no matter what obstacles arise. I think Betty was on to something, very poignantly, very clearly and concisely. She shows us how these two powerhouse aspects of our lives, when done properly, can give us the greatest level of fulfillment. But now I think we should just take a few moments and digress and talk about why grit and gratitude is such an important topic in today's world for women exclusively. Now, I know that there's a few men out there watching and viewing this masterclass, but what I can tell you is that our audience here at the Mom Project, we're a big focal point, and I want to just lean into us a little bit, if I might. So when we think about empowerment, we're talking about obviously those attributes that people feel personally and professionally. But when I think of empowerment in terms of how grit and gratitude impacts us, I'm thinking about the passion as well as the perseverance, things like when we're ready to own a business, or we're getting ready to start something new, or we're getting ready to learn a new skill set. It's how we empower ourselves to be able to keep moving forward when there's levels of things that we simply are find as roadblocks. So it's all about empowerment. Then there's mental health. And boy, is this such a hot topic. Post the pandemic, dealing with mental health issues has become at the forefront of our minds. And we need to find ways to be able to deal with this. So when we think about how grit and gratitude fall into that, it's an ability, as you will learn from tons of clinical studies that are out there, for us to reduce stress, enable us to avoid anxiety, depression, as well as find coping mechanisms that help us deal with some of these things in a very strategic way. And then there's leadership. That's what we're all here for, right? To be the best version of ourselves. So it's talking about those qualities that help us really identify our roles. And that's about being ambitious, inspiring others, really cultivating a culture for appreciation, and then allowing it to become that effective tool that allows us to influence others. That's what true leadership's about. And that's what grit and gratitude can do for women.
As a leader in her first company.
So sorry about that, folks. Before I do, I just want to say this before I lean right into the topic. I'd like to share with you guys, and I'd like to take just 2 or 3 minutes to give you guys a show of unwavering levels of grit and gratitude. Now, there are 2 segmented videos here. I'm going to show both. They both in combination may equate to roughly about 4.5, 5 minutes. But while you're watching them, I'd love for you to take out a pen and paper and jot down a few things. I'd like you to think and reflect upon where you are in your own lives as it relates to sacrifice, commitment, perseverance, your own ability to navigate obstacles, how you pivot, and then your ability to display grace, mercy, and gratitude. So without further ado, I stole a little bit of my thunder. I'd love to show you the 2 video segments. Here we go.
As a leader in her first company, sales grew to more than $1 billion.
It was forward thinking.
When Roz Brewer took the reins at her next Sam's Club, she modernized the business and boosted profits. Then she stepped in as COO of Starbucks and overhauled the way they treat their customers. But all that
Brewer will be headed to Walgreens and will become its CEO.
was just a warm-up.
You're joining Walgreens in the middle of a pandemic. That's a lot of pressure. This wasn't like an easy entry.
Not at all. But this came to me and I said, this is a time for me to step into something that I've always wanted to do. And that's to have impact, make change happen, lead something that would leave an impression on people's lives. And as I've seen people, get their first shot and they look back at our pharmacists and they are crying and in tears, I know I've made the right decision.
At 59, Roz Brewer is a wife, mother of 2, and now the CEO of the largest company ever run by a Black woman. The first Black woman is a phrase that most often precedes her name. But for Brewer, that just means she has more work to do.
The world is before you and you need not take it or leave it as it is. Make it different than when you came in. That is my guiding compass.
To that end, when will she feel her work is done?
Likely never. Likely never. I see so many ills that still, need energy and need a voice. And I hope that I can still be that person to make change happen. I really hope so.
I mean, weirdly, if I worked in here, I kind of wanted to work at Walgreens.
Roz Brewer.
I just loved her whole vibe. She started off as a scientist. And I said, how does science and business work? She said, in science, you analyze data and you make quick decisions.
Yeah.
So she learned that decision making. And the other cool thing she said is when she hires people, she asks them a question. She says, you're at your kid's soccer game and I call you. She said, what do you say? And so most people say, I put the phone down and I go run to you. And she goes, no. She said, a happy employee is a productive one. She said, you say, I'll call you in 30 minutes and I'm good with that. She told me, my daughter won regionals in her track meet on Friday. On Monday, I came to work and I had a skip in my step. She said, I want happy people working here. And I was like, that is awesome.
Roz Brewer. Hope our bosses are listening.
Yeah, and that was Roz Brewer. So let's check out this next one. And I hope you're taking good notes because Elizabeth, when this is over, I love to ask some questions of the audience about what they thought and how they were inspired with their grit and gratitude.
Did you think I had dreams and hopes? What about my life? What about me? I ain't got nothing else to give. What do you want from me?
Complete the mission, you get time off your prison sentence. Fail the mission, you die. Senator Trucco, did you have Trisha Stanley murdered?
And the Tony Award goes to Viola Davis.
Viola Davis.
Viola Davis. The only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity. I became an artist, and thank God I did, because we are the only profession that celebrates what it means to live a life. When I raise my hand, I am aware of all the women who are still in silence.
And in it, you said, nothing can be great unless it costs you something. What were you thinking when you said those words?
Exactly that.
And what did
that for me, everything has cost me something. I always say that whatever it is, whether it's motherhood, whether it's marriage, whether it's self-growth, whether it's any kind of progressive change, I think that the way life works is that it's got to cost you something. That's when you know that you've really made the sacrifices. I'm tired of waiting for people to validate me. That's not going to come. I understand that my validation literally has to come from within. So every time I share my story, I get a little bit closer to, I sat next to a life coach at a party. I always give this, I can't believe I sat next to a life coach. I was like anybody else. And as soon as I knew he was a life coach, I stopped talking. And then I think I said something that is to the effect of, I'm so disillusioned by success, I'm just tired all the time and da-da-da-da. And one of the things he said is, he says, that's because everybody works towards success. That's it. We want to be the best of the best. Yeah, I got an undergraduate degree, Rhode Island College. I got a graduate degree, Juilliard. You want to look good on paper. And then you hit it and you're disillusioned. You're not fulfilled because you forget about the last step, and that's significance. I'm worthy. When I came out of my mom's womb, I came in worthy.
Yeah, and you are worthy, Viola. I love it. We're going to talk about Viola and Roz in just a second. But before we do, I want to lean into a couple of key elements around the scientific aspects of how both Roz and Viola got to where they are. So I promise the data doesn't lie. There are lots of scientific studies out there, and there are more happening every day. But when we think about grit and gratitude specifically, it takes me back to Duckworth's work. And she really talked about the idea of well-being. So if you're looking at the diagram up on the screen, you see at the top pillar, at the top rung, we have success. Just what Viola mentioned, we're all looking for success and well-being right alongside it. But at the end of the day, what we do see in parity is grit and gratitude is part of that matrix from a historical view of how people attain that success. And once they utilize the combination of both grit and gratitude, they have that resiliency which ultimately leads to having less stress. And all of these things come into fold. Like I said, from Duckworth's study, it showed that having grit was just ultimately a better predictor, even than IQ, even than the amazing talent that both these women have. It was that grit that got them to where they are. But there's more. There's also studies that look at the working mom. So Pew Research did some studies most recently where they talked about the working mom. That's the audience for the Mom Project, right? And this study is very relatable to nearly every woman in this audience. The working mom faces so many challenges in the workspace, at home, balancing life, work, family, responsibilities. And unfortunately, some of us even have discrimination or biases. And that ultimately leads to us being so stressed out that we don't have the resources and the support that we need. Sometimes it's in the form of caregivers, sometimes it's the emotional support. But the working mom is a great testament to our ability to have the grit to pioneer past all of these obstacles and still be grateful for the time and space that we have to spend with our children and our families. So that's yet another study that you can learn more about by looking at the Pew Research Center and some of the work that they're doing. Great studies out there. But now some audience members out here are in that corporate realm, right? We're not all entrepreneurs. We're not all in the corporate space. So I want to speak a little bit to both audiences. This is someone that we all can admire and really look at as a true testament to both grit and gratitude. For those of you who may not know who this is Gail Bordeaux. She's the CEO of Anthem Health, Anthem Insurance, I should say. And Anthem, for those of you that don't know, is one of the world's largest insurance companies in the United States. And during COVID-19, Gail Bordeaux did some amazing work. Bordeaux led Anthem through one of the most difficult times that they've ever had in our nation's history. Many companies were feeling this, but what was different was the level of grit and gratitude Bordeaux expressed in dealing with not only her members in the member group, but also the internal employees at Anthem. She was quoted as saying, "No whole health without mental health. At Anthem, we are committed to making people feel whole." And I think this is a true testament from where she came from to where she is today. We see the quote out there. At the earliest age, she learned from these values that she had from her family about hard work and commitment and simply doing the right thing, right? That makes us feel good. And so she could feel good about being grateful enough to show the praise and thank the people that put in those countless, insurmountable amount of hours during COVID-19. And so Gail Bordeaux is yet another amazing woman that's displaying the outcomes and the benefits of grit and gratitude. But let's drive it on home a little bit deeper. This word diagram kind of says it all. It puts things really into perspective. When we demonstrate grit and gratitude, there's so many levels of support as individuals that we simply bring into fold. When we think about empowerment, how it gives us greater mental clarity, greater mental health, and how we bridge that gap, that intersectionality between gratitude, determination that brings about the best leaders, both personally and professionally in our lives. We benefit as women, right? When we show great coping mechanisms and we've got that grit to keep pushing forward, our stress is reduced. We are in control and resilient. And so I love this diagram because it says it all without really saying a lot. Everything's out there. But now I want to talk to you guys about the topic of the hour. And if you're watching in our viewing audience, this is a slide that you should just do a quick screenshot. Own it, put it up in your houses, make it commitment savvy, worthy. We want to take a look at cultivating grit and gratitude in our day-to-day lives. So here's how we do it. The first step in the approach, and I will say that just to give a disclaimer that these topics are not in any particular order, but ironically enough, the two top pillars, setting meaningful goals and prioritizing self-care, are really the first things that we need to do. You hear it all the time. We've got a calendar, an agenda for a meeting for the next, and we set daily goals, short-term goals, but really what we want to do is really set meaningful long-term goals that reach past the here and the now and have us forward thinking. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, because true grit is in preparation for the unknown. So setting those meaningful long-term goals is going to be where it's at. But no goal, no option, no element of our lives is as important as prioritizing our self-care. It won't matter if we're not here to see it come to fruition. So taking care of ourselves is at the first level of how we are going to embrace true grit and gratitude. Then I mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to say it again. Practicing self-reflection, taking time to think back on all that life has brought you, good, bad, or ugly, or just simply being thankful. What does that mean for you? How we stay focused on our values is going to be key. So you've got some values that you were brought into this world with, just like Gail Bordeaux. She was instilled with the value to help people. Same as Roz Brewer. We were all instilled with certain values to help us really think about how our guiding compass, as she mentioned, how we're going to lead our lives. Staying true to those, write them down. What are your values? And don't allow yourself to be compromised. That's the way that we can be truly grateful for the outcomes of the work that we do. We've got to learn to embrace challenges. They're surely going to come. It's how you deal with them that's going to ultimately allow you to shine in the end. And then we're going to cultivate a positive mindset. That's a real hard task to do. And I'll talk to you a little bit about it here in just a second. But it's real important for us to really learn how to make lemonade out of lemons. I almost messed up there, but yeah, how to make lemonade out of lemons. We've really got to, lemons out of lemonade. We've got to really think about how we cultivate that mindset. How do we dive deep in ourselves and think about what is it that we can take from our day and find some positive element in it, so that we are leading forward with all the mustered positive energy that we can to take on the things that are going to happen within our lives. Now, you've got it all set in place. We're writing down meaningful goals. And I say this all the time to my clients. It's great to have a vision board or have all of these goals set in place, but they all won't mean much if you don't have the necessary steps to take the action. We've got to learn how to do it better. We've got to learn how do we go about taking the steps to move us forward. And that's that real grit that we've got to really embrace. I'm a eternal student, and I know many of you are as well. We've got to keep the learning process going, finding ways to continually learn more, do more, be more, so that we're constantly growing. And so that's all a major part of grit and gratitude. Of course, we're going to bring all these things into practice as we think about being thoughtful, courteous, and reflection times, not only for ourselves, but for with others. But at the end of the day, the single most important thing that we can do to help us with grit and gratitude is surround us with that village that's going to help us be whole. And I like to refer to that, for those of you who've taken that master class with me before, as growth friends. That's not girlfriends, growth friends. So growth friends, if you've never heard the term before, are those people that are constantly behind you, helping you to want more, be more, and do more. And they're holding you accountable to all of those things. They are the driving force behind your grit, and they are the cheerleaders for you when you are winning and establishing gratitude. So these are just a few of the things that we can do to cultivate that. Well, before we sum it all up, we'd have to know it. I said it earlier, just as sure as the sun will shine, we will have some obstacles, because it's part of life. Life is set in place where we have some good days and some bad days, but it's how we frame it up. So being able to reframe the narrative, looking at obstacles as an opportunity for growth, is something that is going to help us be successful in navigating some of the challenges that face us when we're out in the world. Cultivating that positive attitude, you're hearing it again and again because we've got to think about those best practices, things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's the small stuff that matter. We need to really avoid sweating the small stuff. People say the small stuff matters so much. Does it really? I think we should all take a chapter from the book of not sweating the small stuff. Staying focused on those long-term goals are what's going to be definitely crucial for us having avoidance of temporary setbacks and allowing us to thrive. I can't say it any better than having your village, having your growth friends, your family, your mentors, your motivators in place are going to help you when times get tough. And at the end of the day, we can embrace all of it and face all of our challenges with clear-cut determination to be able to take on anything. You're going to find that you're going to need some extra help. And I'm your coach, a career doctor, where I provide coaching as my love language. And I want to thank you guys for joining me here today. Written gratitude, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Elizabeth, to take some questions from the audience.
First of all, thank you so much. I took copious notes as I did last time, but I think those tangible examples you showed with Rosalind and Viola, I mean, they were perfect examples of grit and gratitude. And, you know, when Viola was like, I'm just thankful for what I get to do every day and like tell those stories. Anyway, that was really powerful.
Yeah.
As a reminder, we do have time for a Q&A, but I have a question. So you talked about growth friends, but how would one go about like cultivating those relationships and seeking out those people in our lives who, you know, could be girlfriends, but we're ready to elevate them and, you know, ask for that feedback? How would you cultivate them?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Elizabeth, and I'm glad that you asked it. So one way that we cultivate growth friends is getting into new and different circles. And I'm glad that you referenced that they could be girlfriends. In most instances, our growth friends aren't our immediate community a lot of the times. They're extensions of, right? So those are the people that we seek out when we're meeting in those higher levels of engagement. So we're getting in professional-based organizations, in the workspace. There are thought leaders that we would look to for guidance or encouragement, or it could be community leaders, you know, or it could be that wise auntie that we've had at home for all those years. These are the people that are we have in our circle. You know, some people like to call it a circle of five, whatever you want to call it. We all need it. We need that village to help fortify us. So those are just a couple of the places that I would look to find a growth friend.
Oh, okay. That's very, very good, tangible advice.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking about, okay, who am I going to tap? Who of my circle am I going to tap?
Yeah.
So I encourage all of you watching to think about who you're going to tap to become your growth friend. We do have one question I just saw pop up from Jamie. Given the audience, which is mothers, any tips on balancing these actions versus allowing the needs of our family and children to take 100% of our spare time and energy? I feel this personally.
Yeah. So this, Jamie, is an excellent question. You know, I am a mom and my kids, although I'm empty nesting as a mom, I've been there. And I can tell you one of the things that we all should have is a protected day. If it's not a protected day, it's a protected hour. You have to have it every week. My calendar. Fridays are my protected day. You couldn't get me to do much of anything outside of my regular work day on my protected day. That's when I set aside time specifically for me and only me. Everyone needs to do it. You find a caregiver, you ask dad, you ask grandma, auntie, whoever you have in your wheel or sphere of support and influence, you ask for support from them and they begin to know that's her protected day. Don't call, don't ask because I'm not answering. We all need a protected day.
My sister told me this yesterday. She was like, you need to take time for yourself because I'm a mom too. And Jamie, I totally feel this. I mean, I have 2 young kids and they really dictate my free time besides when I'm at work or when I'm at home. It's like, I don't have much time for myself. So I think really making sure that your protected day, I think that's a term that I'm going to start using. Yeah. And I have to also remind myself that like, no is a complete sentence. And just because I don't have something planned doesn't mean that I can commit to something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. No is definitely a complete sentence. It's okay to say no sometimes, and we've just got to get comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, I think we have another one.
All right.
How do you go about balancing holding space for yourself through gratitude while staying accountable to grit? In grit. It's a good
All
one.
right. That's like, oh God, Kalia, wonderful question. I love it. So when we think about holding space for yourself, it's all about what I mentioned earlier. And I asked you guys to make sure that you really hone in when I underline a reflection, a period of reflection. So having that time every day with yourself, for me, before I move, I meditate and I bring out my reflection journal. I have a journal that's dedicated just for that. And I'm also going to provide you guys with information on a journal that I have for all of you. And so having a reflection journal allows you to kind of earmark all the things, because things are going to stack up. And sometimes that stack seems like it's weighing against you. But when you start to really reflect and look at it, for what it really is, you begin to see, wow, I have a job. I have good health. For Pete's sake, I woke up this morning. I have growth friends. I have a lot of those things laying before me. And so I pay homage to those things in my gratitude journal every day, notating what happened the day before that was noteworthy of me giving thanks. And that's how I lean in and start my day. And then I attack that day with a vengeance, with all the grit I can muster. So there's an opportunity for balance. Trust me.
I love what you said about taking note of the small things. You woke up today, you have good health, because every day you can kind of overlook all those things. So I think really honing in on those small things that we can give thanks to daily really drives it home that like we all have something to be grateful for.
Yeah, we do. We all have something to be grateful for. And sometimes our vision gets clouded by all of the things that we're experiencing. I mentioned it earlier, every day, each and every day, we're going to experience something that doesn't go our way, something that's not within our plan. The ifs of the world is like I like to call it. And the what ifs of the world take over a lot of times. And we have to think about, even with the what if, think about how can I do that mental mind shift and make it turn, lemons into lemonade? How can I think about how I can look at that with a different lens? How can I approach it? Even when someone does something that disappoints me in the workspace, or I'm frustrated by something that happens, in my reflection journal, I go back and I think about, now, how can I look at this and find some good in it? And what it does, ultimately, it teaches me how to prepare for dealing with people like that for the next time I encounter them. So there's always some way to embrace the gratitude around it.
I love it. We talked at the Mom Project in a meeting a few months ago about how just a reminder that everyone is coming to you, or something to think about is that everyone's coming to you with the best of intentions. So how you receive it, just try to think about how everyone has the best of intentions when they come to you. And, if you see challenges, try to think of it that way, which I think also helped reframe it for me.
Yeah, reframing the narrative is something that I teach a lot, whether I'm in the corporate space or when I'm coaching one-on-one. It's a real wonderful mind trigger that helps us really navigate life, to think about, there's definitely even when we don't get jobs. And I think about this, with the Mom Project or my clients that I coach that are navigating these tough times that we're dealing with right now. They're frustrated. They go in for these interviews. They have many interviews. They get to the last rung, and then maybe they don't get the job. And I always like to think, but how better, well prepared are you for the next conversation that you have? So there's always some good in it.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm so glad that we could probably continue talking for all day. But thank you so much for joining us. Jacqueline, will you remind our audience viewing today how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, might I pull up a slide?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to our slide deck. And is it up on screen yet? All right, fantastic. So, guys, you can reach me in a multiplex of ways. So, as I mentioned today earlier, I just published my second literary work. It's called Trust Your Journey, with its own companion daily reflection journal. What a hot topic that we would land on. You can reach me by reaching out at www.thecareerdoctorllc.com, or check me out. Use the QR code on screen if you like to go in and learn more about Trust Your Journey, a message for the masses, where you can learn more strategic strategies around grit and gratitude and a number of other components. You also will have the benefit of connecting with the daily reflection journal to kind of chart your own course through the 12-week reflection exercise and course that's within the context of the book. So I'm really excited to be able to share that with you, along with my 3-volume book on Trust Your Journey. This is just the first volume. It's a short, quick read, and I think anyone can get through it in no time flat to have the ultimate levels of grit and gratitude.
Thank you. I hope everyone's scanning that QR code. Again, Jacqueleen, thank you so much for joining us today. To everyone else who joined us today, thank you so much for attending, and we hope that you have learned something to take into your career search, your personal lives, and beyond. As a reminder, there's also a multitude of blog articles over at the library on themomproject.com for your job search, optimizing the Mom Project profile and more. I'd always encourage you to watch other masterclasses that we have on our YouTube channel, along with lots of other amazing career experts. Jacqueleen, thank you again. To everyone else. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying thank you, Elizabeth. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Grit and gratitude is one of those things that it seems like it's a lot to it, but when you think about it, if you just own those 11 steps, it's easy.
11 easy steps. We can all do it.
11 easy steps. We can all do it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.